Howdy! Did you know the word emoji is actually Japanese for picture character? Since their first origins in Japan, emojis have often been a helpful way to express emotions in fewer words. Or, in many cases, just a nuisance. But over the years, some of these emojis have been frowned upon or even banned completely. They might be insensitive or inappropriate in a particular culture, the result of a country's very real censorship, or they may have bothered people for a very silly reason. More on that later. And it is my pleasure to run through these emojis with you today. Let's check out the 10 banned or controversial emojis. And just a reminder, if you do have a differing opinion on some of these sensitive subjects, that's fine. As long as it doesn't hurt anyone, I respect your opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments below. And with that said, let's begin. For number 10 we have the peach emoji. Before 2016, this was the emoji used for Apple's peaches. You know, the company, not the fruit. And well, that's not a peach. That's clearly a butt. I mean, how could a person not see that's a butt? Even Wikipedia, the most dry-speaking professor you could possibly meet, pointed out literally in their second sentence that the peach was typically used as a buttocks. But when Apple's new operating system dropped, they'd removed this peach butt and replaced it with a side-on peach butt. And as you can guess, fans are outraged. Many articles were written by fans expressing their dismay, such as Devon. He wrote,
"What have you done, Apple? You destroyed these iconic images. I want my peach butt."
Fortunately, Apple did realize the error of their ways, and after much campaigning and activism, the peach butt was brought back in a later update. Yay! In fact, Apple stood their ground and went on to make the new peach butt look even more like a butt. In a news article from The Verge, Megan wrote,
"Apple has returned this fruit to its curvaceous glory, the shape we all know and love. Long live the booty fruit!"
Yes, indeed. Long live the booty fruit. And coming in at number 9, the frowning poop emoji. We're starting with all the silly ones, aren't we? You may already know, but the internet has a powerful organization called the Unicode Consortium. They are like the United Nations for smileys. They oversee the world's emojis and decide what should be added. And in 2018, they were in a contentious argument. In a roundtable discussion, they discussed new ideas to be released. And here, they were thoughtfully debating over a steaming, frowning pile of poop. Thankfully, digital poop. You see, when this highly contentious issue was being discussed, the poop emoji was being decided on. Then some genius at Apple popularized the poop emoji by adding a smiley to it. And that's when this debate started, because then the question was asked, should a frowning poop be added to the emojis? I mean, did we really need a smiling poop? Anyway, Michael Everson, one of the lead topographers and critics of the committee, stood up and made this statement.
"Organic waste isn't cute. Is there any real need to add emotion to a pile of poo? What's next? Crying poo?"
He went on to discuss further emoji poops, which I won't elaborate on in the name of good taste. And he pointed out my issue in the first place. Why do we need to give poop any emotion? He concluded his debate by saying,
"I have to wonder, what possible good could come of encoding such a character as poop?"
The main concern of their discussion was the rushed approval of problematic emojis, such as emojis that could potentially be used to hurt people. In case of the frowning poop, they had a concern about bullying. So the idea of a frowning poop emoji was flushed, and honestly, I personally think my life is richer for having never experienced the frowning poop emoji. Number 8. The eggplant emoji. Instagram had very strong feelings on the eggplant emoji. They strongly felt that the eggplant represented a guy's schlong.
Oh, that's nasty.
In fact, it was so regularly used on the platform to represent the male anatomy that Instagram banned the use of the eggplant on their entire platform. Instagram even blocked any searches of the eggplant emoji. Instagram first caught on that something was up when they saw the hashtags eggplant and eggplant Friday go viral. Suddenly, this picture-based platform was flooded with not safe for work photos, and Instagram had this to say on the matter.
This is a breach of our guidelines. Our guidelines prohibit nudity and digitally created content that shows sensual intercourse. No genitals or fully nude butts either.
Water drop emojis were considered controversial as well, as sometimes these would be used next to the eggplant, often to imply a person was finding their happy place. But many were surprised because Instagram didn't ban the taco or the good old banana, and users like Alan called this an opportunity for these emojis.
This is actually great news for the banana, carrot, hot dog and donut emoji. Finally, they can make their debut. They have been waiting in the wings for their time to shine.
So when people want to make juvenile, silly jokes, at least they have a stand-in. Among social media, there's even appreciation threads for these emojis, such as this one on Twitter on the banana.
We're not supposed to make eye contact when you eat bananas just because you want to make sure you keep it as G as possible.
And coming in at number 7, the Facebook feeling fat emoji. Thank you in advance for being particularly compassionate about this subject in the comments. Eating disorders can rule some people's lives, and it's the mental disorder with the highest death rate in the world. So as always, I thank you in advance for being thoughtful to others. You see, back in the day, Facebook introduced feelings with status updates. You've probably seen them before. They encourage people to select how they're feeling with a bunch of pre-written options and emojis. Personally, when I used to use Facebook, I never really bothered using the option. But they're quite popular, and for a time, one of the pre-written emotions was feeling fat. It was a chubby-cheeked, double-chinned emoji. Come on, Facebook, really? From my understanding, there were multiple ways in which this emoji was an issue to some people. First off, this emoji wasn't appreciated by many people with eating disorders, body dysmorphia, or people who are ashamed of their bodies and their weight. And personally, I think I can understand that. Having a larger body is not a feeling, it just is. It's a circumstance of that person's life. Be it a medical problem or whatever it is, we don't necessarily know why that person is big. Someone might have been teased in school for being larger, and this emoji could have acted as a trigger for those times when people were mocked or ridiculed. Also, when social media easily allows a person to select "I'm feeling fat today," this can encourage many people to feel shame about their bodies. Not necessarily you or me, but other people. It's a bit like if Facebook had put "I'm feeling ugly today" as an option, and some anorexic people can believe they're fat no matter how thin they are. Whether it be a larger person, a person with an eating disorder, or an anorexic person, this was just a bad choice of a quote-unquote emotion. Eventually, some people who saw this feeling fat emoji started a Change.org petition. Catherine was the creator of the biggest petition, and she was particularly concerned for people who struggle with eating disorders, or people who are shamed enough about their body weight to struggle to even leave the house. And I think she made some interesting points in her petition.
Fat is not a feeling, and it shouldn't be an emoji either. With 890 million users each day, Facebook has the power to influence how we talk to each other about our bodies.
Claire Misko is the director for the National Eating Disorders Association. This organization often advises Facebook and other social networks on policies that might affect the body image of users, and they had similar thoughts.
While social media doesn't cause eating disorders, negative body talk in comments and status can amplify thoughts and behaviours that lead to disorders.
At first, Facebook refused to change the emotion, but eventually they did modify their double-chinned emoji. In a statement, Facebook said,
"We agreed to remove the emoji after we heard the emoji could reinforce negative body images, particularly from people struggling with eating disorders."
So later, this emoji was replaced with feeling stuffed, which is definitely a feeling I have sometimes. Personally, I don't think we lost that much by not having a feeling fat emoji. If a couple of people feel slightly less miserable about themselves, who cares about the stupid feeling fat emoji? I'm sure we'll live without it. Number 6. The yellow face emoji. Apple came up with this one back when they released the Mac Yosemite operating system. As a result, they ended up in some hot water. You see, Apple, like other platforms, allowed people to choose between different skin colors in their human emojis, and Apple had added a bright yellow skin emoji to this OS. And many people assumed this was Apple adding Asian skin colors to the mix. China's equivalent to Twitter is Weibo, and it was ablaze with differing opinions on this yellow-faced emoji. The problem was, it was so strongly bright yellow that some felt it was racist. Others just felt the face was suffering from jaundice. That's a blood disorder that can cause the body to go yellow. But some Asian people didn't mind it because they were just happy to finally have their own unique skin color in digital text. Previously, many Asians tended to use the white-faced emoji, so at least this was some representation they could use. What's interesting though is Apple was actually taking the Lego approach. They were trying to make this bright yellow the default skin color, a bright yellow that represented all races. The tricky part is, when you look at popular shows like The Simpsons, yellow seems to represent white in that show. When I look at characters like Carl or Dr. Hibbert, they clearly have a darker skin tone. In my own personal experience as a white dude, yellow tends to be the emoji color I use the most often. A 2018 study found a lot of Caucasian people do this as well. But you know, when I can't fully understand the complexity of a problem like this, I just try to follow the basic rule to be kind and considerate to others. Fun fact though, the original 1997 emojis had no color except black and white. When texting though, most of us just stuck with the basic text emoticons for a long time. I still use emoticons to this day. It's what I grew up with. It wasn't until the days of MSN Messenger that many of us started having real fun with emojis. But anyway, my past aside, moving on. And coming in at number 5, the Google burger emoji. Some people were very upset about this emoji. This burger was a great wrongdoing by Google and landed them in a lot of controversy. And in the end, Google was forced to remove this emoji and replace it. Now, like me, when you first see this burger, you probably just see an emoji. But when some Americans saw it, they saw a travesty of justice. Why, you ask? Well, the cheese was placed on the bun instead of on the patty. Needless to say, this issue exploded on social media. News outlets like The Verge were horrified. They warned viewers of this.
Google's positioning of the cheese is blasphemous. It simultaneously defies culinary physics and good taste.
Eventually, this horrible crime of nature was taken all the way to the top, to the CEO of Google. And regarding this matter, this is what he had to say.
Oh no! We will drop everything we are doing and address this on Monday.
But the controversy and backlash was so great that Google was later forced to address this at a conference.
Is this thing on? Last year, it came to my attention that we had a major bug in one of our core products. It turns out we got the cheese wrong in the burger emoji.
So yeah, my sarcasm aside, some people felt really strongly about getting the hamburger right. Well, no one was hurt by it, so good for them. Number 4. Apple's gorilla and clown emoji. When a new product or service is released, it's funny just how important timing can be. Apparently, this is no different for emojis, such as the gorilla emoji. It stirred a lot of controversy, and this was mostly due to it being released in very poor timing. You see, at the time the gorilla emoji was released, the internet was in an uproar with memes and stories surrounding Harambe, a gorilla who had attacked a 4-year-old at Cincinnati Zoo. So when this emoji was released shortly after the incident, it left some people questioning, is this gorilla Harambe? The answer was, of course, no, it's not Harambe. It's just your average, moderately attractive gorilla.
What you looking at?
But since this incident and this emoji occurred at the same time, some people were left confused. Another victim of poor timing was the clown emoji. You see, in 2016, a marketing stunt was done to promote Stephen King's horror film, It. People were dressing up as clowns and showing up in odd locations all around the world, like the edge of a forest, car parks, and schools. It was meant to be a little bit of innocent fun. Unfortunately, it caught the attention of some very mentally disturbed people. These people thought this marketing stunt was an opportunity opportunity to be criminals. So, disguised in clown costumes, a string of crimes were committed across the world. Without going too in-depth, these crimes range from petty pranks to outright murders. In case you're interested in hearing the full story, I've linked the YouTube video from Murder with My Husband that discusses it. Needless to say, when the clown emoji emerged from 2016, it fell victim to a lot of controversy. In extreme cases, Apple was even accused of orchestrating the clown craze to promote the emoji. But that's a little too tinfoil hat for me personally. But despite the poor timing and backlash, the release of both emojis did eventually go ahead. But to be fair, clowns have always been scary. That's the whole reason they work so well in It. No one likes them. No one wants to be a clown. Clowns are like the worst thing ever. Now let me show you my new juggling trick. They call this one tennis. Number 3. Whee! The accessibility icon. I find the accessibility icon fascinating as it has two strong opposing sides. By some, it's praised and it's even created a street art guerrilla graffiti campaign called the Accessible Icon Project. Yet at the same time, it's been banned by the US federal government, and its emoji was rejected by the International Organization for Standardization.
Say what now?
At first, it was only introduced as an emoji in the iPhone operating system, but since then, it's seen a lot of controversy from many different sides. Now, when I see this icon, obviously I speak as someone who's not physically disabled, but I personally see this new symbol as a more active, dynamic, and positive depiction of a disabled person. The Accessibility Icon Project's website points this out too. Unlike the original 1968 disabled symbol, this person looks in motion. I think the old disabled icon makes a disabled person look passive and ready to be pushed to a destination. They couldn't even be bothered giving them a head. But this icon makes the person look in control of their destiny. But authorities were not having it and tried to crack down on this new accessibility symbol, unofficially replacing the old one. In fact, the Federal Highway and Transportation Agency made it illegal to use this new symbol. The project's founder, Associate Professor Glennie, said,
This disruption further educates of what it is to be a person with a disability. It highlights that a person with disabilities is active. They are agents unto themselves.
It's funny because despite the Federal Highway Agency outlawing this symbol, I couldn't find a strong reason for it to be so illegal. The only real underlying issue I could find was the people making this symbol weren't disabled. And I think I can understand why this might have bothered some disabled people. This is how I picture it in my mind. I'm on the autism spectrum, and it bothers me when I see actors who aren't on the autism spectrum playing autistic characters in shows. Why not just hire an autistic actor to play an autistic character? I assure you, there's plenty of us out there who would desperately like the work. That being said, I couldn't find any actual complaints from disabled people regarding the whole not made by disabled people thing. Unfortunately, governing city planning boards continue to crack down on this new icon. In fact, the Federal Transportation Agency put out a memorandum in 2016, and it read as follows.
Nobody can use this symbol in all of America, because I said so.
And then the Federal Highway and Transportation Agency put out a cease and desist against the use of this icon. Why? What a bunch of jerks. Why would they do that? I honestly could not figure out what the federal agency's problem was. Why ban this symbol? What's wrong with it? My best guess is because the icon saw many people go out and graffiti or paste it over the old 1968 version. And while I personally think that's a really cool idea, perhaps the transportation agency didn't want to be seen as endorsing graffiti. So now, states like Ohio, Rhode Island, and Mexico do use a symbol, but they use it unofficially. And sites like Apple, Discord, and WhatsApp have all adopted it as an emoji. Interestingly, on my computer, in my script in Google Docs, it showed up as the accessibility icon. But when I looked at the script on my tablet, it showed up as a 1968 version. Anyway, most of my research shows disabled people like the symbol. But for whatever reason, the US Federal Transport Agency just can't stand it and has outlawed it. Personally, I hope this icon gets adapted more worldwide in the future, because I like it way better than the original.
It's amazing to have it featured in a museum as high profile as MoMA, but on the streets is where I want it.
Number 2. The water pistol emoji. The controversy for this one was huge. And just a warning ahead, we will be very lightly discussing some gun violence in this particular segment. So, after several shootings happened in the USA, and the country hit 33,000 gun-related deaths per year, Apple decided to replace its gun emoji as a water pistol. While some people didn't mind the change, a lot of people on social media were furious. In case you don't know, how an emoji looks varies based on what website you use. For example, on the website JoyPixels, the pistol emoji looks like a bullet gun, but on an Apple device, the same emoji looks like a water gun. That's why your emoji looks different based on what phone, website, or app you're using. But as I said, Apple's water guns in particular caused a great deal of pushback from social media. On websites like Twitter and Facebook in particular, people claimed woke culture, snowflake, blah blah blah. Some people even claimed censorship. But in reality, the word censorship means when a government censors press or speech. For example, the Chinese firewall blocks access to foreign information and news sources, effectively forcing Chinese people to only hear news sources within the Chinese communist regime. To Twitter, that is real censorship. This is a private company replacing a gun emoji with a water pistol. As far as censorship goes, there's a little bit of a difference. Twitter users in particular were furious. Regardless of what news article I looked at, almost unanimously, Twitter users yelled woke culture, sellout, or they just called it LBGT slurs, which I won't repeat here. Yuck. Years later, when Microsoft chose to change to a water pistol as well, once again, Twitter tore them apart, calling them pathetic, thought police, snowflakes, idiots, yada, you've heard it all before. Honestly, my life's been a lot more peaceful since I stopped visiting the Twitter website. When you walk away from Twitter, ask yourself, am I feeling happier for having visited that website? Do I even have any more knowledge of the world? I recommend trying credible news websites like Al Jazeera instead. From my personal experience, I haven't missed Twitter at all. Anyway, we can see from this how a lot of social media reacted. But how did the big companies react to the water pistol? Well, pretty civil by comparison. For example, there was the Unicode Consortium. They're that United Nations of emojis I talked about before. And they had a debate on whether to introduce the rifle emoji. But Apple's representative requested they not add it. In their words, they said,
"We will not be supporting a rifle on our platforms, and we politely request that the rifle not be made into an emoji."
And believe it or not, there actually wasn't a lot of argument about this request. In an interview, a member of the consortium said,
Well, actually, nobody in the room seemed to mind not encoding the rifle.
"Really? Thank you for being civil." No one in the debate had to yell slurs at each other or call each other snowflakes. They all just thought about it and made a calm decision. Thank you to whoever was in that meeting, that's always appreciated. And the big companies' attitudes towards pistol emojis do show nowadays, because Apple's water gun decision was first made back in 2016, and as of 2023, most of the top platforms have also chosen to go water gun emojis. A lot of Twitter users seem to think they were very clever by mocking that this will single-handedly stop gun violence, but I don't think that any of the platforms thought that. I think the water gun emoji is just meant as a symbolic gesture to minimize gun availability. That's it. Even if it's just digital guns, at least it's a symbol. And what child or adult is actually going to be hurt by this decision? Maybe the Discord duck hunting club? But even then, they can just make their own custom emojis. And if they want, they don't have to have any water pistols. They can ban them if they want. And finally, let's check out number 1. Apple's LGBTQ emojis. Just a warning ahead, we will be talking about some revolting levels of discrimination and censorship going on in some countries. You see, when Apple released their 2016 emoji keyboard, they ruffled a lot of feathers. 2 entire countries worth of feathers, in fact. And they managed to attract a Russian government investigation. Holy cow. But I should start by mentioning, many citizens were appreciative of the tech giant's efforts to be ethnically inclusive and create a more realistic depiction of global society. You know, one beyond the heterosexual family, such as emojis from different flags of various nations and a wider range of skin tones, and emojis that showed families of same-gender couples. But sadly, there were certainly people that were not on board, such as when the Indonesian government removed all same-sex emojis and stickers from all social media and messaging platforms. Both the Indonesian government and many Indonesian organizations abhorred anything LGBTQ related. I studied Sharia law in trade school, and it's not a lot better than Christianity when it comes to LGBT people. Basically, if you're not heterosexual, these two gods are going to be about as friendly as an angry Thanos. That being said, from my limited understanding, a lot of Indonesian society is more accepting than their religion is, with some gay and transsexual entertainers appearing on TV shows, which is not much, but at least it's a step in the right direction. But at the same time, we have cases like 2015, where Sharia police arrested a pair of young women for hugging in public. And Indonesian Twitter and Facebook were certainly not safe spaces for the LGBTQ community either, and the websites exploded with criticism of Line and its competitor WhatsApp for containing LGBTQ emojis. Human Rights Watch tried to call on the Indonesian president to protect gay and lesbian rights, but at the time, it seemed they didn't want to hear it. And unfortunately, this ban on same-sex family emojis wasn't limited to Indonesia. Russia did the same. Why? Well, a Russian senator said, "These emojis fall under a law that prohibits the promotion of non-heterosexual relationships." And I guess by promotion, he means acknowledging anything outside of heterosexuality exists. He went on to state that these emojis denied family values and showed disrespects for parents and other family members. How? How does it do that? I know I use this meme a lot, but can I have one more? Brian? Thank you. So, the Russian media watchdog went on to file a lawsuit against Apple. Why? For promoting gay propaganda. Oh, jeebus, this is horrible. Sadly, this is a real law that Putin continues to enforce in Russia. Now, while some people may disagree with me on this, I respect you enough to let you know my honest opinion. Whether it be seen as political or not, if something is dangerous or wrong, I am not going to lie to you. And obviously, I think this Russian rule is repulsive and absolute utter horse crap. And Putin's crackdown on the LGBTQ community does continue to this day. In 2022, the only LGBTQ history museum in Russia was shut down, and Buttface recently expanded these anti-gay laws. Now they suppress LGBTQ media not just to children, but every citizen of Russia. Hopefully those Twitter users can see from this example that Apple using a water gun emoji is not censorship. This Russian anti-LGBTQ law is very real censorship. And unlike a water gun, this will legitimately hurt people. And it's this sort of thing that the word censorship was actually designed for. Honestly, I wish I could end on a more positive note, but I don't want to lie to you. These sort of laws are seriously messed up. And if you have a Russian friend, I hope you can offer your respect and support to them. The same goes for Indonesia. Not all citizens there have it easy.
Вы личность, вы индивид, вы тот, кто вы есть.
There's so many different ways we can view an emoji based on context and who is viewing it. But for you and I think if we show a little consideration to others, that's about all we can do. Also, to lighten things up, here's a cute pug. I call him Ralph.
Yeah, pug.
And if you have an opinion on these emojis or something you'd like to share, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Please look after yourself and each other. And as always, thanks for watching, and hopefully I might see you next time. Bye bye. Today's member question is from Fairfax Video Mark II. They ask, what helps you overcome the average stresses of life? I don't know if I overcome them, but what helps for me personally is I try to every day do at least 30 minutes of exercise, and I try to do a 10-minute yoga session before I start my day. I also try to make sure I take a walk outside at least once a day, and I try to get out for a hike in the forest whenever I can. Talking to people who care about me helps a lot too, and not necessarily making time for people who don't. Thanks for the question.